He smirked. "You're woman's with a real man now." Then, the consequences of his words hit him like a freight train, revealing a secret that would cost him everything. The words hit me like a slap in the face. For a moment, I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Just a second earlier, I had been standing in my own home thinking everything was fine. Hell, everything had been fine. The doorbell rang, I answered, and there he stood. Tyler, my best friend. Or at least, he used to be. "Come in," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, but Tyler didn't enter. Instead, he gave me a smirk, the kind you give a rival when you've already won. "Your woman's with a real man now," he said, his voice dripping with false sweetness, his tone sharp and confident. My pulse quickened, and something cold slithered up my spine. His eyes gleamed with smug satisfaction, like he was savoring my pain. At that moment, I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. I just stood there staring at the man who was supposed to be my friend, the man who had been in my life for nearly 10 years. My mind raced. My heart hammered in my chest, but it felt like it was 1,000 miles away from me. From the moment. The house, my house, felt suffocating, every corner of it echoing with years of memories. But now those memories seemed irrelevant. All of it, the time, the friendship, the love, was collapsing around me. "She's yours now," I said, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. Tyler's smirk widened into a grin. He was enjoying this, every second of it. "It's funny, you know. She never told you. About us. About how she's been with me for months. You were too busy with your work, with your big plans, while I was showing her what a real man can do." I felt like I had been punched in the gut. His words were like a poison that had spread through my body. For a moment, I thought I might be sick, but I didn't let him see that. I wasn't going to let him win. The anger was bubbling beneath the surface, but I forced it back down. The ache in my chest was unbearable, but I shoved it aside. I couldn't let him see me weak. Not now. Not after everything he'd taken from me. I did the only thing I could think of. I turned my back on him. "You should leave," I said, my voice as cold as I could make it, without looking back. Tyler chuckled darkly. "Oh, I'm not done yet. Wait until you hear what she said about you. You'll really be sorry." I could feel him standing there, still in my doorway, still reveling in the devastation he'd caused. His presence loomed in the room like a shadow, but I couldn't face him anymore. I couldn't face the reality of what had just shattered in front of me. But I wasn't sorry. I wasn't angry. Not yet. The numbness was settling in deeper, a protective blanket over the mess of emotions trying to overwhelm me. It was like I had been suddenly severed from everything I had known and loved. I heard his footsteps retreat, and the front door clicked shut behind him. The silence in the house afterward was deafening, and I was left alone, standing in the center of my home, my sanctuary now turned into a battlefield of lost trust and shattered hearts. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, but eventually I collapsed onto the couch, my hands gripping the edge of it like it might be the only thing holding me together. My heart was still racing, my mind a whirlwind of broken images, Tyler's smirk, Lily's betrayal, the weight of their lies. But for the first time in weeks I felt something else. I didn't know what it was yet, but it was different. It was calm. It was numbness, and I could almost hear the echo of a distant thought. I wasn't going to let them have power over me anymore. I closed my eyes, leaned my head back, and let the darkness of the room swallow me whole. There was nothing left to do now but figure out what came next. It was the beginning of something. I just wasn't sure what. The days that followed were a blur. I went through the motions, work, dinner, sleep, but nothing felt the same. The numbness had settled deep into my bones, and I couldn't shake the weight of Tyler's words from my mind. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his smirk, the kind you give a rival when you know you've already won. It was as though my whole world had cracked open in an instant, and I was left standing on the precipice, unsure of what to do next. I couldn't stop wondering about Lily. How had she kept it from me for so long? How had she managed to slip away without me noticing? The questions circled in my mind like vultures, but there were no answers, just the cold echo of her betrayal. We had built something, at least that's what I had believed. We had laughed together, planned for the future, shared our lives. I had known her for 5 years, loved her for 3. I thought we were strong, a team, indestructible. But now, in the wake of Tyler's confession, everything seemed like a lie. How could I have been so blind? The nights were the hardest. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, trying to convince myself that it wasn't true, that it had been some mistake, but deep down, I knew the truth. Tyler had taken her from me, and what made it worse was the fact that they had been together for months, behind my back, while I had trusted them both without question. 3 days passed in this haze of anger and confusion before my phone rang. I recognized the number immediately, Lily. I hadn't answered any of her calls since that night. I couldn't bring myself to talk to her. What would I say? What could she possibly say to undo the damage? I hesitated, staring at the phone. I could feel my pulse quickening, my stomach twisting into knots. But I knew this conversation was inevitable. I couldn't keep avoiding her forever. Finally, I pressed the green button and answered. "Hello?" I said, my voice quieter than I intended. There was a long pause on the other end, and I could almost hear her breathing, like she was trying to find the right words. Then she spoke, her voice shaky and tentative. "Can we talk?" I didn't answer right away. Instead, I let the silence hang between us, weighing on both of us. The woman I loved was asking for a chance to speak, but I wasn't sure if I was ready to listen. How could I? Everything she had told me before felt like a lie now. "I think we've said enough," I replied, keeping my voice as neutral as possible. I heard everything I needed to hear from Tyler. There was another pause, and then her voice came again, softer this time, pleading. "Number you don't understand." I bit back a bitter laugh. How many times had she said that before, when we were arguing over something trivial, something that didn't really matter? But now it was different. Now it mattered. Everything mattered. "I understand perfectly," I said, my voice cold and distant. "You were with him all along, and I didn't notice. I guess that makes me the fool." "Please, just let me explain. It wasn't like that." I shook my head even though she couldn't see it. The words were just falling out of her now, desperate and unconvincing. It wasn't like that? How else could it have been? "Then how was it?" I pressed, unable to stop the bitterness from seeping into my voice. "How do you explain months of lies? You've been lying to me for months, Lily. How do you explain that?" She was silent for a moment, and I could almost hear the wheels turning in her mind. I didn't mean for it to happen. It was a mistake. I was confused." Her voice trembled, and part of me wanted to feel sorry for her, wanted to believe her. But another part of me, one that was growing stronger by the second, was telling me that it was too late for apologies, too late for explanations. "A mistake?" I repeated, my voice growing colder. "A mistake you've been making for months?" "I never meant to hurt you," she said, her voice small now, barely above a whisper. "I love you, but I was drawn to him. There was something he gave me that you couldn't, and I didn't know how to stop it." Her words hit me like a cold slap. "Something he gave you that I couldn't?" The implications of that were staggering. What did she mean by that? What could Tyler have given her that I hadn't? The trust, the love, the future we were supposed to share, all of it seemed so insignificant in that moment. I closed my eyes and let out a slow, steady breath. It was as if I was seeing her for the first time, not as the woman I had loved, but as someone who had betrayed me in ways I couldn't even comprehend yet. "Goodbye, Lily," I said softly, my voice breaking through the fog of emotion that had clouded my judgment until now. "I can't do this. I'm done." Before she could say anything else, I hung up. The silence in the room was deafening. I stood there, phone in hand, trying to process everything, but the truth was, I wasn't sure I wanted to understand anymore. The lies, the betrayal, the lost trust. It was all too much to handle. For the first time in days, I let myself feel something other than numbness. The anger, the hurt, the disbelief, it surged through me like a wave, and for a moment, I let it wash over me. It felt good to finally be angry, to finally not care. Weeks passed, and the hurt began to fester into something far more dangerous. I threw myself into work, buried myself in distractions, trying to forget. But the memories of Lily were everywhere. The way she smiled, the way her hand fit perfectly in mine, the warmth of her voice. The house felt empty without her, and the silence was deafening. I couldn't escape it. The hurt wasn't going away, no matter how hard I tried. One night, as I sat in my home office, going through paperwork, I heard a knock at the door. My heart skipped a beat as I froze, unsure if I was imagining things. Another knock, louder this time. I reluctantly stood up and walked toward the door. My mind raced with the possibilities of who it could be, but when I opened it, my pulse quickened. There she was. Lily. She looked different, pale, disheveled, her eyes swollen from crying. She looked like someone who had been carrying a heavy weight for too long. For a moment I didn't know what to feel: anger, pity, confusion. The hurt was still there, raw and exposed, but something else lingered too. "I need to tell you something," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. I didn't know if I was ready to hear anything more from her, but I found myself stepping aside and allowing her in. My instincts screamed at me to shut the door and never let her back into my life, but my desperation for answers overpowered the caution. I needed to know the truth. Lily sat down across from me, her hands wringing together nervously. She couldn't meet my gaze, and I could see the weight of the words she was about to say. "I thought I could walk away," she began. "But I can't. There's more to this than you know, more that I couldn't tell you before." My mind raced as I leaned forward. "What's that?" She took a deep breath, and as if the words were being dragged from her, she said, "I was never the only one. Tyler wasn't the only man I was with." I froze. The world seemed to stop for a moment. My heart slammed in my chest and the room felt colder. "What do you mean?" I managed to ask, barely above a whisper, my voice shaking. Her eyes filled with tears as she confessed, "I didn't just sleep with Tyler. I've been seeing someone else too. Someone from my past. Someone you know. He's been blackmailing me." The words hit me like a freight train. Tyler wasn't just a lover. He had been pulling the strings in a much bigger game than I ever imagined. The man I had trusted with my life had been using me as a pawn, and now the truth was finally coming to light. I stood up abruptly, my anger bubbling up like a volcano about to erupt. "Who is he?" I demanded, voice trembling with fury. Lily's eyes darted around, avoiding mine, and for a moment I thought she might stay silent. But then she spoke the words that shattered everything. "Tyler." The name echoed in my ears like a death knell. My best friend, the man I had considered family, had been playing me all along. Everything I thought I knew had been a lie. I could feel the ground beneath me shift, my world crumbling. Rage burned through me as I grabbed her by the arm, pulling her towards me. "Tell me everything, now!" But the damage had been done. The man I had trusted had betrayed me in ways I couldn't even begin to comprehend.